The United Nations has described it as the worst humanitarian disaster in the world. Joining us now to discuss the Somali refugee crisis is Jens Oppermann, Country Director for Somalia at Action Against Hunger, a global humanitarian organization. Mr. Oppermann, thanks for your time and thank you also for your patience. We know that drought has become a pervasive problem in East Africa, but why is it an even bigger problem for Somalia?
Absolutely. Somalia is certainly one of the most affected countries of this drought and this phenomena that we are now seeing affecting all the countries in the Horn of Africa. But moreoverly also Somalia is very much at the heart of the problematic that we see developing in the neighboring countries when we look at the humanitarian situation.
Yeah, and is it because they don't have a stable and secure government?
It's for many reasons, actually. I mean, at the moment we're considering the drought as being one of the aspects. In addition to this one, skyrocketing food prices by over 270% that just make it not affordable anymore for a population to buy food. And in addition to this one, in the case of Somalia, we also see a high level of insecurity, yes.
Yeah, obviously, and if there isn't a government that works well, it's very difficult to create safety nets such as subsidizing maybe some of the food imports or creating welfare checks or food vouchers. So what are the options for the Somali people who can't afford food, where the prices are now skyrocketing and they don't have a government that can help them cope?
Absolutely. I mean, at the moment, the priority of humanitarian organizations such as Action Against Hunger is to provide urgently needed humanitarian emergency assistance in order to save lives. What we're observing in the areas in which we're working and which we're now expecting soon to be confirmed by other organizations are the conditions of a famine. So we're talking about a humanitarian catastrophe of a scale the last time we've seen in Somalia in 1992, and is maybe comparable to what we've seen in the early 80s in Ethiopia.
What sort of humanitarian needs are the most important at the moment? Obviously getting food into the country. What else?
What is important at the moment is to provide directly humanitarian aid to around about 2.8 million Somalis affected by this catastrophe. Well, we're also considering that about 250,000 children at the moment at the brink of starvation and will die if emergency assistance is not being provided. So with a focus on emergency assistance to Somalia, we also need to focus very soon on providing sustainable solutions to address the underlying causes of malnutrition, but also the underlying causes of the drought, and to build resilience of the Somali population to sustain their lives even in times of drought.
And Mr. Oppermann, the broader impact of this, because we do know with the war situation, particularly in southern Somalia, many Somalis have fled into neighboring countries like Ethiopia and Kenya in particular. So as they look and forage for food and some kind of shelter, they're likely to cross borders, and that's likely to create another dimension of insecurity on the region.
Absolutely. I mean, the people that crossing into the neighboring countries like Ethiopia and Kenya have often crossed vast distances within Somalia, have walked for up to 30 days in what is arguably the most hostile environment in this world. Without food, without water, people arriving in a state that can only be described as heartbreaking, mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, and often also ill, severely ill and injured. And the ones that are suffering most are children, pregnant women, lactating women, and also the elderly.